not going to say I told all of you out there. I've talked about Trey Lance on the Harvey Hour Fired Up probably 4 times at this point because we keep hearing things coming out. First, we thought, Trey Lance maybe have, a third-round trade value. Should the 49ers get off him because they have Brock Purdy now? Who knows? Then they got Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, it looks like Kyle Shanahan really loves Sam Darnold and said that he could have maybe the best year of his career this year. If Brock Purdy doesn't stay healthy, it looks like Brock Purdy will start week 1. Now it's gotten to the point where Trey Lance has no market value, according to Adam Schefter. And not only that, he's expected to be behind Sam Darnold on the depth chart. So he'll be the 3rd quarterback on that team. And we have to remember, he was the 3rd overall pick, and the 49ers gave up, I believe, 3 first-round picks to move up into that spot to get Trey Lance. This is bad. This is really bad. And honestly, for Trey Lance, I'm starting to feel slightly bad for him.
Yeah.
So I want to know, is it now okay to officially call Trey Lance a bust?
No.
What? No.
He's not a bust.
Wow. Explain. I'm curious.
Not a bust. If you look at his first 4 games in the league and his passing stats, and you look at the guy, Jalen Hurts, his first 4 games, Trey Lance has better stats. Had better stats than Jalen Hurts. And look what Jalen Hurts has become. So the jury is still out. The book is still open on Trey Lance. I don't know where he gets his chance to prove himself because he's getting further and further down the depth chart. But putting Sam Darnold ahead of Trey Lance, I would say, is a mistake. Sam Darnold has not been. He has flashes where he plays well, and then he. I think he's a bust personally.
Well, Kyle Shanahan really likes him. He seemingly has
They're setting it up for a trade, I bet. They're
for Sam Darnold or for Trey Lance?
No, to trade Sam Darnold.
I don't think so. Yeah. I really don't think so. What I find quite interesting is that this came out about a month ago, if I have to take a guess, relatively recently. And it said that originally, when Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch moved up to the number 3 spot, their guy was Mac Jones. That's what we heard. Mac Jones to the 49ers. It turned out John Lynch was the guy that persuaded Kyle Shanahan to look at Trey Lance. And then they fell in love with Trey Lance and his intangibles, his athleticism, his size, all that. And they just, my guess was that they said, we have Jimmy G already. Mac Jones is just a younger version of Jimmy G. How about we go get this guy who's 6'4", 220, and has tremendous athleticism? He was the rawest quarterback coming out of the draft. He didn't play in the COVID year. I think he played, 20 total games in 4 years in college. So he was the rawest quarterback coming out of this draft.
They had to find reps for him, and they haven't been able to do that. He hasn't had really a chance to show what he can do because of the injuries.
I will say that, yeah.
And also he suffers from the great year that Brock Purdy had that pushes him further down the depth chart and makes 49ers fans forget all about him because of Purdy's pretty performance.
I'll say this. It's even before that. Because if we remember, the offseason before, in about, I think, was it January, Jimmy G was saying his goodbyes. He was saying, this is Trey's team. He was saying his goodbyes to the 49er media. Then Kyle Shanahan goes, this is Trey Lance's team. But then they restructured Jimmy G and signed him on a 1-year deal to bring him back? What? You just said this was Trey Lance's team.
No, but Trey Lance did start the season, and he would have continued playing if he hadn't gotten hurt. He got hurt badly.
He did start the season. I agree, but to bring back Jimmy G, even though you said Trey Lance was Jimmy G's replacement, but yet you bring him back? To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So you have Jimmy G down your back. Now you start off very poorly. In his 2 career starts, he has under 50% completion percentage, no touchdowns, and an interception this season. In his 4 total career starts, he has about 55% completion percentage, about 800 yards, 5 touchdowns, 3 picks. And his problem wasn't his athleticism. It wasn't that he's slow. He couldn't complete passes. Jimmy G is the exact opposite of that. Jimmy G is not as athletic as Trey Lance, yet he can complete passes. So in a Kyle Shanahan offense, where Matt Ryan was an MVP, Matt Schaub, I think, made a Pro Bowl. He made RG3 better than Andrew Luck in 1 year. You have Kyle Shanahan, who has tremendous success with, I would say, not tremendous quarterbacks. You couldn't get Trey Lance right? You brought Jimmy G to a Super Bowl and had him up by 10 in the fourth quarter. And you can't get Trey Lance right? And
well, I think it's because Trey Lance got hurt. They had him in there. They were going to let him play probably the whole season, right? He won his first game, right? Then it was a horrible game. I mean, the monsoon game, but they did win the game. And the next game, he got hurt. So there's no line on him.
No.
Or was it the third game he got?
No. They lost the monsoon.
Okay.
He got credit for the win that he got hurt in because he started the game. So technically, he's 0-1 this season because Jimmy G came in and saved that game against Seattle. Crushed Seattle, actually. Trey Lance was 2 of 3, 30 yards.
Yeah, he never got a chance to really get going. I think, maybe they'll try to trade him. I don't know. If he was trading him, some teams should take a look at him. I mean, they might not have to give up much to get him. But
he has no trade market, according to Adam Schefter.
I think that's wrong. I bet there's some teams that would look at him.
I mean, okay, well, let's see. I think there's maybe a couple teams that may look at him. The first one that jumps off my screen is Washington. They're the only, Washington and maybe, probably not, Atlanta. Those are the only two major teams, and I guess Arizona too, but they have Kyler Murray already. So to me, actually, that wouldn't make a lot of sense. You made the Raiders, maybe, Jimmy G, who knows if he'll even be, starting at the beginning of the year. He's dealing with an injury still. He just had surgery on it. We'll see if he's good or not.
I think the Raiders, definitely. Why wouldn't they look at him?
The Raiders or the Commanders are the only two teams that might even want to, take a little glimpse at Trey Lance. Otherwise, the NFL is largely full.
Or there might be a team that has a quarterback now that knows they're not going to have him next year, like Minnesota. It depends on what you have to give up to get Trey Lance. You may not have to. If he has no trade value, then you should be able to get him for next to nothing. I don't think that. I guarantee you, San Francisco would not let him go for next to nothing.
Well, back in January, Mike Silver of the San Francisco Chronicle said that his trade value was worth a 3rd-round pick, and I said as soon as I heard that, go get rid of him for a 3rd-round pick. He's going to sit on your bench and depreciate faster than you could blink. And lo and behold, it went from 3rd-round pick when I talked about this. It went from 3rd-round pick in January to now we're at the end of June, and his trade value is, according to Adam Schefter,
nothing.
0. Not even a 7th-rounder.
I think he's wrong.
I think, honestly, just to do Trey Lance's mentality
if you could get Trey Lance for a 7th-round pick, you should get him.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
He was touted to be a potential superstar. Right? Look what they traded up to get him. They gave up a ton to get him, and he never got really a chance to show what he could do. And he didn't. They knew that he was a project because he never played that much in college, so he never got the reps to show what he could really do. And he's still an unknown, and he's still young. But
I will say this though: take a look at the Green Bay Packers. They kept Jordan Love even though he started in training camp not looking that great. They retained Aaron Rodgers for 3 years, and now they're ready to put Jordan Love in the starting position. They didn't even really say, we'll take Aaron Rodgers back. They literally said, if he comes back, that's not in our plans. They trusted Jordan Love enough to put him in the starting lineup now. They see stuff at Trey Lance. They bring back Jimmy G. They draft Brock Purdy. They signed Sam Darnold.
Brock Purdy was not drafted high.
He was the last pick in the draft.
The last pick in the draft. He turns out to be a steal, right? A diamond in the rough.
Right.
And that doesn't happen very often. It's just unlucky for Trey Lance, I think. He's had he has not had any luck, that's for sure.
But the reason why I brought the Packers is they didn't go out and keep picking up quarterbacks to maybe back up or replace Jordan Love. The 49ers, they keep spending money and figuring out situations, bringing in. They brought Joe Johnson in. Joe Johnson is a journeyman. They're bringing in all these quarterbacks because Trey Lance, they don't see as ready. Now, if they hold on to him, that's just bad.
But Trey Lance was not ready to play last year. He couldn't have played in the playoffs, right?
He couldn't have played in the playoffs.
So they had to do Josh Johnson. They had to have somebody.
Well, yes.
They had nobody. And Trey Lance wasn't able to play. If he had been, they wouldn't have had Johnson. They would have had Lance backing up Purdy, I would have thought.
Actually, my guess would have been if you had Jimmy G healthy and you had the decision between Trey Lance and Jimmy G.
Though. Jimmy G was not healthy.
He was probably about a week out. He said the Super Bowl, there was a pretty good shot that he could have played. But still, though, right now, if you said, if Jimmy G was an option for the 49ers, and you had Jimmy G, you had Trey Lance, you had Sam Darnold, or you had Brock Purdy, or let's say Brock Purdy's there. So Brock Purdy right now is the starter. And you had a second quarterback that you would put there. Out of those three quarterbacks, Jimmy G, Trey, and Sam Darnold, who would you put as your second spot? For me, it's Jimmy G, then Sam. Like right now, the way they have their depth chart, it's the exact way that they're probably going to the season. That's the smartest way. Have Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold, then Trey Lance. But you know what? My guess would be the only reason why you would keep three quarterbacks is now there's a new NFL rule that's saying you keep three quarterbacks without losing a roster spot. And
really? You can keep three quarterbacks without losing a roster spot?
That's the rule.
So
now.
They're going to hang on to Trey Lance.
But
they know that he is. It's not clear whether he's a superstar or not.
Well, even then. Even if that rule isn't fully into effect yet, I think I read somewhere a while ago that it could be in the season. But even then, they would only hold on to three quarterbacks because of what happened in the playoffs last year. Brock Purdy got hurt. Jimmy G was already hurt. Trey Lance is hurt. You had no one else.
I'm sure they will hang on to three because of that problem of the quarterbacks always getting hurt.
Right. And
Brock Purdy maybe a little bit of a question mark with his elbow problem.
Correct. But it looks like all signs point to start week 1. My opinion would be just to save the kid's mentality, to save his mental health, get rid of him. Because he's just going to be sitting there behind a guy who's been labeled a bust. Think about that. If I walk in somewhere and the guy above me got clowned on by New York, got thrown up by in Carolina, even though he had some moments. I mean, in one of the Patriots games, he played when he was on the Jets, he said he was seeing ghosts. He got kicked. It was his second overall pick. For 3 years, he was gone. As the second overall pick, 3 years he was gone.
I don't think he's any good.
He's a terrible player, and you have probably a bigger upside. You're more athletic.
With Lance.
With Trey Lance, and you're underneath the guy that's labeled a bust.
Well, we'll see what happens in the preseason.
I would be insulted.
Let's see what happens in the preseason. Trey Lance may win the second spot.
I don't think so, because I think Kyle Shanahan actually believes in Sam Darnold. Because think about it. Mac Jones was Kyle Shanahan's pick. It was John Lynch that said, hey, take a look at Trey Lance. So Kyle Shanahan already wanted Mac Jones. That's why they moved up to number 3. And then they I guess they fell in love with Trey Lance's intangibles and said, we'll take a shot.
Wish they hadn't done that.
Well, no, Kyle Shanahan had a bunch of
maybe the Patriots would have Trey Lance.
Hey, in my mock draft, I had the Patriots.
I think Trey Lance would have been gone.
To draft Justin Fields.
They would have. He wouldn't have been there. I think Trey Lance would have been drafted sooner than the Patriots pick at 15.
Well, in my mock draft back, was it 2021? If I'm not mistaken, it was the 21 draft. I had the Patriots actually trading up to number 9 to draft Justin Fields. That was my mock. But once again, they didn't move.
Didn't happen.
They didn't move. You got Trey Lance. What we've seen of Trey Lance, right? And again, I'll go back to the Packers. In training camp, the Packers said, we believe in Jordan Love enough. We moved up to draft Jordan Love. We believe in him enough to say he's our starter. They didn't even sniff the idea of bringing back Rodgers, who was definitely a Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback.
They were sour on his commentary and the way he conducted himself.
Right.
I think that's why they said they'd had enough of him.
But if Jordan Love really wasn't that guy...
He don't say, I'm the greatest player in Packers history. That's a little self-centered, I think.
But what I'm saying is
particularly when that team had Bart Starr at quarterback and Brett Favre, too.
That's fair. But what I'm saying is that if Jordan Love really wasn't that guy, they would just stay silent and say, Rodgers, here we go again. The 49ers, they draft this guy at number 3, give up most of their future picks, and just say, we'll take a project because Kyle Shanahan could get things done. Even Kyle Shanahan couldn't work on this project. They brought back Jimmy G. They drafted Brock Purdy. Trey Lance started the year, did okay. He didn't do great. in his entire career, he's done pretty poorly.
He never had a chance. He has not had a chance.
But in training camp, let's say Sam Darnold we knew was a bust. Everyone's labeled him a bust. I don't think there's any possible way Sam Darnold, unless a team like Washington or the Raiders they lose Jimmy G or Sam Howell is probably garbage, that Sam Darnold may get another starting job in the NFL. That's my guess. Even Baker Mayfield got a starting job, so I don't know who the hell gets starting jobs anymore. Even the Bucs.
Well, maybe the Commanders should go out and try to get Trey Lance as their backup quarterback.
That's what I'm saying. Get Trey Lance, because guess what? The 49ers aren't going to use him. They got Sam Darnold in the backfield.
Yeah, I think we'll see what happens in the preseason. Maybe Lance will outplay Darnold. Darnold, you don't know what you're getting with that guy. Sometimes he's good. Sometimes he's bad. Most of the time he's been bad. Makes some terrible mistakes. Throws lots of interceptions. He's just not. I don't think he's got it.
I stamped the date, even though I should have stamped it before. Mark it down. I put a bunch on the fact that Trey Lance is a bust. He won't be a Pro Bowler, won't be an All-Pro, won't win a playoff game. I'll put it all to the middle of the table. Yes, He is. Let's see how I just had.
Okay, well, I can remember you last year telling me Baker Mayfield is done. He's never going to start again in the NFL. 3 weeks later, he was starting for the Rams. So I think we'll
come back against the Raiders.
Yeah, right. And he had a great game there, right? And now he's a starting quarterback this year for another team. So I don't know, Nate. We'll see. I wouldn't put all my chips on the table there against Trey Lance just yet.
If you're sitting behind Sam Darnold, really?
Well, that's the judgment error on the part of Kyle Shanahan. my opinion.
Hey, Baker Mayfield was also behind Sam Darnold, I will say that, and behind P.J. Walker. Yeah. And then he ended up being behind Matt Stafford, and now he's ahead of Kyle Trask. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, if you want to check out the full episode, make sure you click the I in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to listen to this show anywhere you go, make sure you go to anchor.fm/The Harvey Hour or anywhere you get your podcasts.